I'd like for you to take your Bibles tonight, please, and go to the book of Daniel, the 3rd chapter. On this, the occasion of the 199th anniversary of our country, I have a desire in my heart to share with you a message from the Old Testament that I believe speaks loudly to us as citizens of these, our United States. Previously, at another time in history, there was an empire, perhaps stronger even than these, our United States, are or ever have been. This empire was situated in Southwest Asia, in what today, of course, is in the area of what we refer to as Iraq. In the Old Testament, this empire is referred to as Akkad. Sometimes it's spelled A-C-C-A-D in the Bible. Sometimes it's spelled A-K-K-A-D. It is also referred to and used a number of times, speaking of the plains of Shinar, S-H-I-N-A-R. At other times, there's a reference in the Bible to people who lived in the land of the Chaldeans. This empire on the north perhaps was bordered it's called Babylonia, the empire, and it was located in almost the exact geographical section of the world. It's in the area that at one time had in it what is referred to as the Garden of Eden in the Bible. It is the area from which Abraham came from a very great city of this particular empire called Ur of the Chaldees, that Abraham left. On the north, this empire is bordered by Assyria, to the east by the Persian hills, or as the Old Testament refers to it, Elam, E-L-A-M. On the west, you have the Arabian desert, and down at the south, the Persian Gulf. This was the empire known as the Babylonian Empire. It got its name from its capital city, the city of Babylon. This great city was situated in what is the geographical center of the world. And there in its day, it sat like a diamond, as I heard someone say, on a couch of velvet. This great city was surrounded with double walls of protection. Those walls covered 17 miles to border the city. And the outside wall was wide enough that 2 chariots could have a race on it going around the city. In that great city, a vain yet fabulous and very great king called Nebuchadnezzar built what became known as one of the 7 wonders of the world, the Garden of Nebuchadnezzar. He built this garden for his wife, whose name was called Amytis, A-M-Y-T-I-S. She was a Median princess whom he had married. And the hanging gardens, one of the 7 wonders of the world, were built by Nebuchadnezzar for this beautiful queen. In it, up to this time, we have located, via archaeology, 53 major temples to different gods within the border of that great city of Babylon. The greatest 2 temples, of course, one is to Ishtar, and the other is the temple to Marduk. Ishtar was the god of fertility, or goddess of fertility. Marduk was the god or the sun god. Those were the two greatest temples. Now, the record of some things that occurred in the times of this great empire of Babylon is written in the book of Daniel. Daniel, the man of God, was a prophet living at that time, and things had occurred in the city of Jerusalem and in the tribes of Judah and Benjamin to the south. The temple in Jerusalem had been ransacked. The best of their young manhood had been taken as slaves to Babylon. The most beautiful women had been taken as slaves to Babylon. And that's why this record in Daniel needs to be considered here on this occasion of this Sunday night of the 199th anniversary of these our United States. Chapter 3. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 80 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar had on his expeditions gone out to what is known as the world at that time, all the other empires, all the other kingdoms, and wherever he went, he captured their gods, and he brought their gods back to Babylon. He had the greatest collection of gods of any king that perhaps has ever lived. And when he would capture these gods of those countries and bring them back, he set them up in the city of Babylon. But he knew that he was bigger than any of the gods he had captured, because it just happens to be a law of logic that if you can capture that god, then you're bigger than that god. Right. So finally Nebuchadnezzar had the most brilliant idea he could ever have. He said, since I captured all the gods, there are none left to capture, I've got them all, then I must be God. So he had this statue made out of pure gold, over 100 feet high, and he set it out there on the plains of Dura. And he said, there is your God. Then he did something else. Nebuchadnezzar the king sent together the princes, the governors, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the consulars, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes, the governors, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the consulars, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And then a herald cried aloud, with might he heralded it forth, to you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, you fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Now this is sort of remarkable, that this King Nebuchadnezzar figured this all out, and he had seen that at these other gods people fall down, they'd worship him. So he decided that to this god that he had set up of himself, made out of pure gold, he would demand that whenever these things occurred, everybody would bow. Like today, some people look toward Mecca when they pray, somebody else toward Jerusalem. A few of us look to God. So, verse 6 says, and whoso falleth not down and worships shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Now that command had some heat in it. Not teeth, but heat. This was a declaration from the mightiest king of all times, Nebuchadnezzar. He not only, just said it one, he called in all the rulers from all those other countries that he had captured, brought them all back, and he says, fellas, I don't care where you live. If you're 1,000 miles from here or 5,000 at that hour, when these things occur, when this trumpet sounds and so forth, everybody down, facing toward the statue that he had built on the plains of Dora. Therefore, verse 7, at that time when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sax, psalter, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Wherefore at that time certain Chaldeans came near, and they accused the Jews. They spake and said to King Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. Thou, O king, hast made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, the flute, the harp, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of it shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whosoever falleth not down and worshipeth, that he shall be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Is that what the king had said? Exactly what the king had said. But you know, O king, there are certain Jews, Judeans, whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon. And the reason he had set them over the province of Babylon is because what the man of God, Daniel, had done. For in the 2nd chapter, in verse 46, it says, the king Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshipped Daniel, and commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odors unto him. The king answered unto Daniel and said, of a truth, it is that your God is a God of gods and a Lord of kings and a revealer of secrets, seeing thou couldest reveal this secret. Then the king made Daniel a great man, and gave him many great gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and chief of the governors over all the wise men of Babylon. Then Daniel requested of the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon, but Daniel sat in the gate of the king.